January 1944. A cold wind blows across the California desert, carrying the distant rumble of engines. On a dusty highway near Barstow, long convoys of olive-drab trucks roll across the landscape like a river of steel. Behind the wheel of many of these vehicles are young American women. Their faces are steady, their sleeves are rolled up, and their boots are planted firmly on the pedals. They grip the oversized steering wheels with a calm authority that belongs not to civilian life, but to war. From behind the fence of a nearby prisoner of war compound, captured Japanese officers watch the convoys thunder by. Many were captured in the Pacific just months earlier. They still carry the stiffness of Imperial officers, the sharp posture, the rigid expressions, the eyes that reveal nothing. But what they see breaks something inside the logic they've lived by. The rising dust, the roaring engines, and the unmistakable silhouettes of women driving military trucks leave them motionless. In the Japanese war machine, such a sight was unthinkable. Women were to serve the empire from the shadows, never from the front lines. Yet here, in a nation they were told was weak, distracted, and morally broken, women drove military supply convoys with complete authority. The symbolism of the moment settles on them with a weight heavier than any weapon. And there was another sound, a simple, constant sound, the rattle of metal canteens hanging from the American soldiers riding in the back. Each clang was a reminder of an abundance their own nation had never known: water, steel, fuel, and choice. To understand why this moment mattered so much, you have to step back into the machinery of Imperial Japan. The Japanese military was built on discipline, hierarchy, and sacrifice. Every role had its place, and every place had a boundary. Strength came from uniformity. Obedience was the highest virtue. The idea that women could take on critical logistical roles was a concept that contradicted the very foundation of their wartime ideology. It simply wasn't done. The United States, however, operated differently. The war effort pulled from civilians as much as soldiers, from volunteers as much as professionals. By 1944, more than 100,000 American women were serving in the Women's Army Corps, the Army Nurse Corps, and various civilian auxiliary units. Thousands more drove supply trucks, ambulances, and even flew aircraft as women Air Force service pilots. Their work wasn't just symbolic. It was essential. Every convoy that rumbled across the American West carried cargo destined for the front lines: ammunition, medical supplies, food, and spare parts that kept the Pacific Campaign alive. The Japanese commanders observing these scenes had been taught a very different story. Imperial propaganda had described America as soft and indulgent, a nation too concerned with comfort to wage a sustained war. They were told Americans were individualistic to a fault, incapable of the collective sacrifice required to win. Yet here they stood, watching women, who were civilians only months earlier, commanding heavy machinery with practiced ease. They saw American men treating these women not with disdain, but with trust. They saw commanders allowing women to transport equipment that, back in Japan, only the most disciplined male soldiers would ever be allowed to handle. And with every passing truck, that glint of sun on a metal canteen whispered a quiet truth. A nation this wealthy in resources could afford to empower every single one of its citizens. This wasn't just about manpower. It was about a different philosophy of power altogether. Historical records from POW camps in California, Texas, and Idaho confirmed the profound shock that captured officers expressed. One report from the War Department noted that Japanese prisoners were visibly unsettled after witnessing American women performing what their own military considered frontline duties. Interrogation notes contain phrases like "unthinkable in the East" and "impossible under our command." While their strict conditioning prevented them from reacting openly, their private diaries collected after the war tell a deeper story. For some, the sight of those convoys created the first crack in their belief that Japan could outlast the United States. For others, it marked a moment of deep introspection, a realization that the American war machine was far larger and more flexible than anything they had ever imagined. It wasn't just that women were allowed to serve. It was that they were trusted to serve with competence. The Japanese officers expected to find chaos and disorganization in a system so different from their own. Instead, they saw order. They expected to see American individualism run wild, leading to ego and conflict. Instead, they saw teamwork. They expected to find desperation. Instead, they saw a confident, steady rhythm in every American convoy, a rhythm punctuated by the metallic clatter of those canteens as the trucks hit the uneven desert road. That sound, repeated day after day, became the unofficial anthem of democratic abundance. It was the sound of a nation whose strength came not from rigid hierarchy, but from mobilizing the talents of millions. In the Pacific, these Japanese officers had seen the fire and fury of American war power firsthand. But here, in the strange calm of the American desert, they were witnessing the deeper force behind it all. The societal engine capable of producing endless support, endless manpower, and endless supplies. An army built on fear and obedience could be incredibly powerful, yes. But an army supported by the full and willing participation of its people could be unstoppable. When the war finally ended, and these officers returned to a homeland forever changed by defeat, many carried that memory with them. The sight of American women driving trucks, a sight that was once so unimaginable, became a powerful metaphor for a different kind of strength. A strength rooted not in discipline alone, but in opportunity. A strength that grew not from a strict hierarchy, but from a sense of unity. A strength expressed not with the clash of swords, but with the simple, rhythmic clang of metal canteens in the desert sun. In the years that followed, Japan transformed itself into a nation where opportunity expanded, where old, rigid social structures slowly softened, and where the hard-won lessons of the war rippled outward in the most unexpected ways. Of course, no single moment can explain such a profound national transformation. But it's just these small scenes like the one on that dusty desert highway that plant the quiet seeds of new ideas. As history moves further away from the battles and closer to the meanings behind them, one truth remains clear. The power of a free society is not measured only on the battlefield. It's measured in the willing hands of its people, men and women alike, who carry forward the weight of duty, not because they are commanded to, but because they choose to. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, consider subscribing for more looks into the lesser-known moments that shaped our world. See you next time.